the UK, and he's founder and CEO of iTalk MH Limited, which is a very interesting company that goes and works with companies in different sectors, not just the construction sector. And they provide training and coaching, and they provide cultural change in the area of suicide prevention, which is what grabbed our interest in terms of today's discussion. And obviously, it's a very sensitive topic. If there's anything that triggers you with regards to the topic, please reach out to the Samaritans or to other organizations such as the Samaritans to get some support with whatever is that trigger. Obviously, we'll be as sensitive as we can during the conversation as well in terms of what we share with you today. But it's done in such a way that if you're in the business of construction and this area has affected you, or you want to prevent this area within your business and put measures in place, then this discussion will talk about that and how you would do that, and what Darren has done in the past in order to help cultural change in this area. It's a very interesting topic. It's a very fascinating area, and Darren has some insights, both personal and corporate, to tell us today. And I'm looking forward to unpacking it with him. Darren, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Glad to be here. Looking forward to it.
I'm looking forward to it too. For anybody that's on LinkedIn or YouTube, that is a Chelsea jersey behind him, so we won't hold that against him. It's an old jersey as well, it looks like.
Yeah.
I think.
Yes, all the players signed on there as well from an FA Cup game many years ago.
It's a wonder that it's able to hang on the wall with all those the weight of all those names on it.
Absolutely, yeah. There's a little one there when we won the Champions League as well. So
here we go. Yeah.
What can I say?
Didn't take long. It didn't take long for him to jump in on it. Tell me, let's get straight into it. Today's topic is suicide prevention in the construction industry. I told you that I was going to hold you accountable.
Yes.
For telling me that you can prevent suicide in the construction industry. Tell me why you're so adamant that can happen.
Because I lived it. I lived the experience of being in that dark place, and the factors that drove me in that direction. And I want to make it perfectly clear. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a counsellor. I'm someone who's lived the experience to the point where I was on the edge of taking my own life. And the whole story, which we'll cover over the next sort of 40 minutes or so, will show you why I ended up in that situation and why I do what I do now. But as I said previously, most suicides are preventable. Not all suicides are preventable, but we all need to be doing a little bit more to prevent those ones we can prevent.
Yeah, it's a very bold statement, and I did say I was going to hold you accountable to it. Have you any sort of measurement or metrics that you have that you can sort of put out on the table in terms of people that may have maybe had through the help of yourself or your program have saved themselves?
Yeah, so there's various examples, obviously without naming names, but what it is what I believe passionately in prevention over cure.
Okay.
What we've done for decades, and listen, the construction industry's come a long way. It's been on a huge journey. If you go back even just 25 years ago, 30 years ago, how we were with health and safety.
Mm-hmm.
You go on sites now, the facilities are incredible. Not on all sites, but most of the major sites, the facilities are incredible.
Yeah.
Health and safety has been the number one topic when you're creating a site. It's not just hard hats and high vis, it's everything else. It's no trailing leads, it's the dust exposure, noise, everything. Now, if you go onto a HS2 site now,
mm-hmm.
They're the cleanest I've ever seen a site. They're the quietest I've ever seen. The canteens, the food is incredible.
Yeah.
And this is how it should be. But that didn't happen overnight. That needed to be a cultural transformation. And that's what I want to try and create. That's what we want to try and do with iTalk, is create a culture that makes it not just a physically safe site, but actually a psychologically safe site as well. And it's not just the sites; it's actually the whole workplace.
Yeah.
So, because quite often when we talk about construction, we visualize a guy with a hard hat on, high vis, pair of safety boots, going about his work. There's so much more to it than that. There's the back office, there's the
Yeah.
salespeople. So it's there's a lot of things that go on in construction that not necessarily just on a site, and those people are equally as important, and we shouldn't lose sight of that as well. So when you
Yeah.
talk about examples, this is what we do within iTalk is when we go and work with leadership teams, we work from the ground up as well as from the top down, and we try and work in harmony with everybody involved, and every company is different. So if we just had a simple framework that we could introduce to every company, that would be brilliant, but it's not that way. Some people employ 50 people, some people employ 500, some people employ 5,000. And you've got to work within the constraints of their organizational structure as well. So every one of them's different, and that's why we take the approach we take, where we actually sit down and do sort of consultative education with them, find out where they are currently, i.e., their current state, and where their desired state is, and where they see themselves when we're talking about psychological safety, mental health, and suicide prevention. Where they see themselves going forward, what's the ideal, what looks good to them, and
Yeah.
everyone's going to have a different opinion. So it's not like a sure fast, right? There's a textbook. This is how you go and do it.
Yeah.
There's every one of them's going to be different. They're going to have different priorities, and that's why it's important to make what we do bespoke around that.
Um, I have a background in health and safety, so without putting my nerdy hat on, I'm going to throw a few
Yeah.
curveballs at you.
Yes.
Is suicide a risk to a construction business from a construction setup point of view? From somebody running a construction business, is suicide a risk within the business?
Absolutely. If you've got a site with 500 people on there, and this is not about one company, if we're just talking a construction site, 500 people on there, and there's one suicide, that one suicide financially can impact that site around about £1 million. So the financial implications of there being one suicide can be really, really heavy. And as you know, the margins we work on in construction industry don't allow for that 1 million loss.
Yeah.
It takes a lot to retrieve that and get that back. So there's that impact as well. And that's formed with, the shutdown of the site, the absenteeism within construction, the mental health absenteeism, that just mental health absenteeism in construction in the UK alone is costing the industry £2.75 billion every year. That's
Yeah.
not that's not a bad back. That's not a broken leg. That's mental health absenteeism.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to measure what mental health presenteeism is costing. There's talk of it being 4, 5, maybe even 10 times that figure.
Do we have any numbers of? I think there's a grey area here. Is there not um, in terms of statistics in the workplace for suicide?
Yes, there is. So on average in the UK, you're looking at about 6,000 suicides every year, and when you're looking at sort of 75% of those are male. And then you come into the industry, the construction industry, where the ONS, the Office of National Statistics, haven't released the latest figures. So the
Yeah.
last figures we had were around the 500 mark, just over the 500.
500
There
in
was,
construction
yeah,
for suicide on site.
yeah,
On site.
yes, absolutely. So
Wow.
if someone's left the construction industry for whatever reason, and it may be because of their mental health, if they then go on, 6 months later and die by suicide, take their own life,
Yeah.
that figure will not be included in there.
No, I know that. Yeah, that's what I was going to get to. Or if they work still in construction and go home and carry out the act, that's not recorded as a
A-
statistic
Absolutely.
in
Yeah,
construction.
absolutely. And
Wow.
this is where one of the things, this is why
Wow.
it's a grey area. Who says what, where, and when? Into the figures. It's a
Yeah.
much bigger problem than we give it credit for. And many years ago, because of my background, I used to do a lot of work with victim support. And one
Yeah.
of the things we struggled with was getting people to cooperate and collaborate with you, because if they had to own up that victim support was needed, it
Yeah.
meant there was a bad world out there. So they shied away from it. And in a lot of cases, we're doing this in the construction industry. You
Yeah.
know, we all talk about awareness. We've been talking about awareness for decades.
Yeah.
It's it's now it's time for action. And some companies do it. Some companies are doing some fantastic work out there, and they're doing their level best. But some people just don't know where to turn. They don't know how to begin. And they
Yeah.
come from a good place. But ultimately, you've got to run a business. You've got to make that business sustainable and make money. So
Yeah.
that becomes your number one priority.
I'm in health and safety, and I've never done a risk assessment or have been asked to do a risk assessment on the potential of somebody committing suicide on a construction project.
Yeah.
It's actually not a known thing. It's not
No,
something that's been asked for, because I like the way you put that at the start of the show. Psychological safety, have a psychological safe site. That's a new
yeah.
one on me. When we all talk about behavioral based safety and behavioral based safety programs, we don't really talk about a psychologically safe project, which is an interesting concept. Do you have a program that you can talk to us around that concept?
Yeah, so basically, it begins at the top, but you've also got to get the buy-in from the guys. So and when I say the guys, I mostly talk about this from a male perspective, but it's not solely males is who we work with.
Yeah.
My lived experience is I see it through a male eyes. Yeah,
Yeah.
so that's why I tend to talk about that. It's a male-dominated area, but it's
Mhm.
not to say they're the only ones struggling here. It's far from it.
Yeah.
So one of the things you've got to do is if the leadership team, whether it be a CEO, a managing director, project director, whoever it may be, come in with an initiative, it's getting the guys to buy into that, you know, to say they don't want it just to be a tick box exercise.
Yeah.
And I've said this recently, they can call me in to do a motivational talk, tell my story, give them some tips and hints. Great. And I can do an hour and all the guys go away and go, oh, wow, that was great,
Mm.
and off they go. Well, that's it. The following day, you know, who's Darren Barden? What did he talk about?
Mm.
So it needs to be a sustained approach.
Yeah.
It doesn't need to be. Funny enough, I've actually just recorded a little video about, you don't need to do Banana Bread Friday to make this work.
Yeah.
Because people eat the banana bread, it's gone, it's forgotten about. The times for awareness now have moved on. We're now into the time of action, and
Yeah.
action needs to be sustained. It needs to be
I,
over a period of time.
fair play to you for saying that, because my issue with some of this stuff in regards to mental health is that some people are jumping on the bandwagon, and if you go in and you open up this box of problems, how do you deal with that then? You can't just go in and sort of give a talk and then walk away, and then everybody's left with, oh, hold on a minute. Now you've opened up the box. I probably need support because you're after triggering me, and I've realized maybe I have issues that I didn't think I had, but now that I've listened to Darren Barden, he's opening up something in my head, and I actually know I need to speak to somebody about this, or I need support on this. So you're really coming at it from that point of view, is that okay, send me in, let's open it up, and let's have the hard conversations, and then don't let me put words in your mouth, but I presume that's what you're talking about, is that you then put in this program.
Absolutely. So what we do is, as I said earlier, we look at the current state of the situation. What they're doing at the moment. They'll tell you they do. Well, we do stand down days. We do this initiative. We do that initiative. We put everyone through this training course, and it's all great. But if you're not getting that genuine buy-in, and sometimes you don't get it from the guys because they haven't got that communication chain between them and the leadership
Hmm.
that they trust. And that's not to say they don't trust them from a work point of view, just an emotional trust, which is slightly different. So,
Yeah.
and we act as that conduit between the two. So that when we go in, the actual framework is about actually getting, if you like, communities within the construction industry, within the project.
Hmm.
So people that actually sit down and we can delve into it a little bit. We can go, well, there's an app that backs up. There's a support app that we've got as well within iTalk, and it's called the Help Hub, and people can go on there, and it's got 24-hour text coverage through the shout service. It's got the Samaritans direct phone number to the Samaritans, so if someone's in suicide crisis, they can reach out. but someone may just be struggling with
Yeah.
drink or drugs,
Yeah.
and I can go in there and tell my story, and it won't, it may not impact them, but what it
Yeah.
can do is trigger the fact that they need to get help. It's at that point, where do they go? And so they
Yeah.
need to know there's an option where we can funnel people through this, and this is really really vital. That one guy may have a gambling problem, one have a relationship problem, one may be having trouble with finances, with a
Yeah.
mortgage application, wherever it is. Everyone's troubles are different,
Yes.
and it becomes a minefield. So much noise out there about every subject.
Yeah.
If you googled mental health now, the opportunities, the options that come up are billions. You know what I mean? It's there. But where do you go? Where do you choose? So what we've done, we've vetted a lot of organisations that we work directly with, and we bring those specialist people in. I can't be a specialist in all these
Yeah.
subjects, and one of the things on site, alcohol and drugs, still a huge problem in the industry.
Yeah.
It's, and even if it's, they're not drinking on site, but they're just turning up hungover, on a
Yeah.
regular basis.
Yeah.
The impacts that has on a site, on the people around them,
Yeah.
so it might just be they just need a bit of help.
Bit of support. Do you mind if we?
Absolutely.
Do you mind, Darren, if we roll back and maybe are you okay sharing your personal story with us and just give us that context of how it's so close to yourself?
Absolutely, yeah. So I was, probably you can tell, run of the mill guy. Used to be up the pub on a Friday or Thursday when we used to get paid weekly and things like that back in the day. And I,
Yeah.
I received a knock on my door on a Monday night at midnight. And at the time, I had two jobs. So I used to work during the day and then at night to earn extra money. We were skint at the time, so I'd done an extra job delivering newspapers to shops.
Fair play
And
to you.
my son was at home. He was 1 year old with my wife, and the knock on the door came. I went downstairs because that's what we used to do. If one of us overslept, because we were starting work somewhere between midnight and 2 a.m., you'd just go and knock on the door and say, "Listen, you've overslept." So getting a knock on the door wasn't a
Unusual.
regular occurrence, but it wasn't unusual,
Yeah.
So yes, I went downstairs, opened the door, and two guys basically looked at me, came in. And at the time, I thought I was being beaten up. It turns out I was being stabbed. They surged forward and they stabbed me over 20 times in my head, back, chest, and legs,
Wow.
in a frenzied knife attack. I had
Wow.
three different blades used on me, and which meant one of the guys had a blade in each hand.
No
So
way.
they use a Stanley knife. They put two blades in a Stanley knife, and they separate it with a match. So when it cuts you, it can't be sewn up.
Oh, I know that.
So
Yeah.
I had
Yeah.
that across my chest. To be fair, that was more of a scratch, and they broke the Stanley blade off in my skin there. The one in my back, you could put your whole hand in. The one in the back is my legs. So I had 7 serious stab wounds in my skull. One of them across the back here. So it was
Be
a
safe.
frenzy
It'd be safe to
attack.
say it would be safe to say you've had better days.
Yeah, exactly. Which is really funny actually, because when
Sorry
the
for
police
laughing.
started, yeah, when the police started investigating, the CID guy came to me and he said, "Listen," he said, "you got to put this down as a bad day at the office." No shit,
Thank God you
Sherlock.
can laugh
You
about
know,
it. Oh my God, that is horrific, man. That is absolutely horrific. And
so it turned out to
no.
be.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say it turned out to be a professional hit, but mistaken identity. I'd never been in trouble with
Oh,
the police
jeez.
before, so we don't know if it was wrong house, wrong person. Obviously, from my point of view, it was both.
Wow.
Um, my wife and 1 year old son were upstairs at the time, and that was it. And that was the beginning of the journey for me. It was, I was 29 years old. We'd
Wow.
just bought this house. We got a new baby, and it was tough going. But at 29 years old and being stereotypical alpha male, you sort of dust yourself off. You put everything to the back of the brain, and you carry on with life.
Yeah.
And fortunately, what I didn't do was actually deal with the situation. So 13 or 14 years after, I ended up going through a bout of what we now know is PTSD.
Yeah.
And post-traumatic stress disorder is quite common in people from the military of soon active service, and it can be a delayed reaction. And
Yeah.
I got that, entered into a bout of depression, which drove me down to the point where I was on the edge of suicide. I'd planned out when I was going to take my own life and so on. Fortunately enough, I didn't, and it was tough times. It was the depression probably was over a couple of years, and it was a real slow decline. And when I look back around my social circle, you know, my friends, the amount of friends, I had a huge network of friends and family. You know,
Yeah.
so there was none of this. I was so alone. I was so lonely. But I was in a pub 3 nights a week. With loads of people. We was partying on Saturdays. There was no shortage of friends and family around you. But I was so alone. So like I can't. It's really hard to describe how alone you feel, and that's the bit that drove me to the edge,
Hmm.
if you like. And there's this sense of being surplus to requirements. No one's going to care if I'm not here anymore. And I knew no one cared. And obviously this is all made up in my head at the time. This was going on. I didn't have control over my emotions,
Yeah.
and I will always state that if if I got a choice now of taking the stabbing or the depression, you've got to choose one, Darren. Give me the stabbing all day long, because the depression was 1,000 times worse.
Wow.
This it was what so far away from anything I would know as a human. If you go out and play football and you break your leg, the pain's there, but it
Yeah.
heals.
Yeah.
But then what happens then is actually sometimes that it's the emotional side, the mental side of things that actually may not heal. You broke your leg playing football, doing something you like, or at work, and
Yeah.
actually the financial implications of that can cause you huge mental health issues, stress and
Wow.
anxiety. And so it's that side of things that I don't want other people going the same route I went down, and that's why I focus on prevention over cure.
Thank you so much for sharing the story with us. And that's horrific, absolutely horrific. And well done to you for coming out the other side of it. Well done to your family, obviously, because you obviously have a strong family and support network to get you to where you are today. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here, obviously. Um, in
But 100%.
terms,
If it wasn't for my wife, I wouldn't be here now.
yeah,
She's super strong. I mean, we've been together nearly 40 years now, 30 odd years married, and you know, she she kept everything on a level around me. So while all this chaos in my bubble was going on,
yeah,
the bubble outside remained sort of stable. The
yeah,
kids grew up. We kept a lot of what was going on with me away from the children, and she done all that. She managed that situation brilliantly,
yeah,
and that for me was probably well,
unbelievable.
is the reason why I'm still here.
Yeah, like a good partner,
Yeah,
white and gold, and all that kind of good stuff.
yeah, absolutely.
Tell me, where's the connection with construction? Is it?
So on and off, I've worked in construction, supplied in construction. So many years ago, when I first left school, I was actually a sign writer by trade, and we used to do a lot of building signs. And we'd go onto site and dig the holes, climb the ladders, fit the signs. So my work was always in and around construction of some description.
Yeah,
Whether it was I was never a builder. I mean, I'm quite good with tools. I've rebuilt my house a couple of times, and
yeah.
but more recently over the last sort of decade, I've worked for Hilti, the
Oh,
power
very good.
tools.
Yeah,
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 and my role was within tool hire, which was going in and training people on site. You'd be surprised, people pick a drill up and they don't know how to use it. They pick a breaker up, they don't know how to use it.
yeah.
And our role was to get round, educate people on why you should use the tools you use.
Very good.
And so I've been involved in construction in various guises over the years,
Well done.
and
And
it's an area I could just see that needs help.
oh, big time, yeah, big time. Did you obviously you got medical intervention for yourself? I take it, did you at the time?
Yes, so no, from a medication point of view, I didn't take any tablets back
Okay,
then.
okay,
Um, after the stabbing, it was literally, I had a little period where I was off work, so I'd gone back to van driving at this point, and yeah, I just eventually just got back on track. But when the depression kicked in,
yeah,
I then went into at some point. I then mustered up the courage to go to see the doctor, and he gave me some medication, sertraline, 50 milligrams of sertraline, which is basically I call them a mentalist pills, but apparently it's not politically correct to call them that. But it's how I am, and I didn't take them. These tablets, they meant failure to me. This meant, as a man, I wasn't capable of dealing with my emotions, and if I'd have taken these tablets, I'd have lost to this thing called mental health. And so these tablets, the box kicked around the house. It went from the kitchen to the bedroom. It was on the windowsill. It was on a coffee table.
Okay.
I didn't want to take them. I couldn't take them. It just meant defeat, and that's not what I wanted at the time. Looking back, if I could have just taken the tablets early on, it was the sort of the stabilization which I needed.
Yeah.
They talk about, some people don't agree with it, some people do. There's medical evidence both ways, but it's basically a chemical imbalance in there that needs leveling out,
Yeah.
one way or the other. And for me, they were a godsend. They
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
they don't work for everybody, and I wouldn't force anybody down that route, but certainly give it a try if that's where you're at and that's what the doctor recommends. But yes, the medication came many years after, and also several years after I went through the depression.
Wow. And to this day, do you still need support yourself personally, or how do you deal with that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm lucky because this year, in fact, in January, in 2024 we had a few personal issues. We had a cancer scare with my wife. I had a health issue, which then put me in hospital on a life and death situation for a week and things like that. And I came into January and I noticed the change in me.
Yeah.
But because I'd seen it for many years previously, I knew I wasn't in a good place. So I booked an appointment, went to see a therapist, spoke to him for an hour,
Yeah.
and it was all I needed. But I spotted the signs. Now, not everybody has that luxury, and so I was quite fortunate. So yes, I do need support from time to time, and I'm certainly not afraid to admit it. I don't mind telling people I take the tablets. You know, it's something I'm working towards, working away from, but I'm
Yeah.
I'm in the best form of my life now, and they certainly helped. And if I need to go and see a therapist tomorrow because I've woke up and realised there's not something right with me,
Yeah.
I'm going to go and do it. And I will tell people I do it as well because I want other people to be doing the same.
Yeah. But well done. Well said. First aid training, mental health first aid training. Your thoughts, your views, and whether you think it's a positive or negative.
Oh, good question. So for me, your mental health first aiders, I worry about the people who've done the training, the pressure
Okay.
that puts on.
Okay.
So I think that, is there a support network being put in place for these people?
For the
And
first aiders themselves.
absolutely, yeah. And
Okay.
I don't know what they what support's put in place for them. I'm assuming they've told, oh well, you can contact us. If you're feeling struggle or you're finding things difficult.
Yeah.
And I can tell you through lived experience that when you're struggling, the one thing we all know is if you talk about it, it helps,
Yeah.
right? But and we're always telling people reach out to talk about whatever your issues are. And I can say from lived experience, that's the last thing I was going to do. You know, so if I was a mental health first aider now, and there was a story that was troubling me, you've
Yeah.
got a conflict. You've got the conflict of, you know, client confidentiality. For starters, so you're taking on a burden with that, and
Yeah.
these things can harm you, mentally. So that side of things, I'd like to make sure that there's a structure in place and a safety net in place for the people that are actually mental health first aiders.
Yeah. Fair
I
point. Good shout,
Yeah,
Darren. Good shout.
yeah. I don't know how impactful they are, and this is not to diminish anything anyone's doing out there and trying, because it's a step in the right direction for me. We're doing
Yeah.
something which is better than actually just talking about it.
Yeah.
So, and it certainly, I feel it can help, and they play a good role within an organisation. So how impactful it is, I don't know. Time
Yeah.
will tell. It feels like it's a relatively new thing. I know it's been around for a few years now, but it seems
Mm.
to be coming to the fore a lot more, and people are taking more and more people on for this,
Yeah.
or giving people the role. Yeah, so I think it's got its place, but like I say, I'd step with it cautiously.
Yeah. I know what you're saying. You're saying that you need a wider framework around the whole area rather than saying, here we've a mental health first aider if you're stuck. There needs to be a whole program and
Yeah.
structure and framework around that, as opposed to just saying, "Hey, we have that boxed off because we have a first mental health first aider." Spoke to somebody recently in the
And that's the
UK.
critical part.
That is a critical
Sorry,
part,
mate. Go on.
100%. Yeah, like you're, as we spoke earlier on, you're opening up a box and you're playing on people's emotions and you're bringing out all this information, and then what do you do with it? Where's it going to go? Like,
Yeah.
how do you manage that? Like, it's all right bringing it out, and it's great that people have someone to talk to, but where does it go? How do you manage that situation?
And this is the other thing as well. You go from, a CEO of a big organisation, a construction company, who's got his regional directors, and then he's got the project directors, the project managers, the team leaders. And all of a sudden, then you got like 10 or 12 guys working for this project manager. It may be subbies,
Mm,
but they're all working on a site together. Whether they're Sparks, Chippies, Brickies, whatever it may be, they're all on that site together. So it's
mm,
sort of not irrelevant who they work for, but they're on site together, and someone's going to be managing that particular part of it. And for me, it's about how can that person, that project manager or team leader, whoever it may be, how can they spot there's an issue before there's an issue? Has they all go up, I don't know, the first Wednesday of every month, they all go up the pub and have a couple of beers together, or,
mm.
do a bit of 10-pin bowling, whatever suits them. And it's great. They're going, right, brilliant, this is great. And all of a sudden, one of them's not quite in the WhatsApp chat that he used to be. He don't turn up for the little drinks on a Friday.
Yeah,
It's what you do then. There's a little telltale sign. Now, there may just be a genuine reason for it, but it may
yeah,
be that someone's struggling. And how confident is that team leader, that project manager, in spotting that, being aware of that?
yeah,
And so for me, it's about building in a culture. When I talk about cultural transformation, it's getting team leaders to. We've got something called a well-being grid, and it just gives a few sort of key signs, if you like, where we can actually say, about mood, about attendance. That people can just go, right, we need to act now, rather than leaving it until the first is the guy's being disciplined because he's not been there, on time, or
yeah.
he's taken random days off. So,
Mm,
all of a sudden you get rid of the guy, and that's it. He's from your point of view, you forget about it.
yeah,
You don't know the impact of that. And so, can our project managers listen? They're not all nurses. They're not there to sort of look after and care, but they've got a sort of a duty of care to every individual. We all have, you know.
yeah. I think stand to be corrected here, but I'm really sure there's a change in the health and safety legislation in the UK in terms of the reporting of accidents and incidents, that suicide, the word suicide, is actually inserted in an update on the Health and Safety Act, as far as I know.
Well, there's also a new British standard for suicide prevention in the workplace, which is a guide, which was
Really?
launched on the 19th of November. Yeah, so I've got a copy of it here actually. So anybody can go on and download this. It's a bit of
BSI.
a read. You can read in there, but and it's for all workplaces. It's not just construction, and as we were saying earlier, it's not just on a site where people work. They still work in construction, but away from it. So, the actual site, and that's going to help a lot of people.
Yeah,
Now, I know there's people out there talking about legislation, which I do believe will help. I don't
yeah,
think suicide fits in with RIDDOR. I used to feel that RIDDOR would be a good way of doing it, but I think what
yeah.
you're doing there is you're probably making people culpable for situations that maybe they couldn't control,
Mm,
and I think maybe if for my money, I think we do need some form of legislation. And if that means taking on the new British standard and saying, right, listen, we're insisting as a construction industry, as a body, we're insisting this is what happens when there's a suicide. There needs to be an investigation. And the reason for the investigation is not to lay the finger of blame, but it's actually to make sure it doesn't happen again. Let's learn from it. And this is going back to the cultural transformation, which I talk about all the time, is that mistakes happen and things go wrong,
mm,
right? But it's no good
mhm.
just disciplining it and moving on, and dealing with it on face value. let's find out. Let's do a real digging work and see why the problem occurred in the first place, so we don't make that mistake again. So we
Yeah.
learn as we go, and we need to do that with suicide prevention. We need to do it with mental health. You know, it's it's so important that we learn from what's gone before us, and to
Hmm.
do that, we need to do the investigations with suicide. It needs to happen. Then, I'd love one of the big tier one, tier two companies to come out and say, right, if there's a suicide on our site, we are going to carry out an investigation. Right?
Yeah.
That's not law. They don't have to do it, but I'd love it if they did that. You know, and actually carried out, get the relevant people in to carry out an investigation so they can find out what went wrong. Was there anything more we could do? You know, not just to blame people, but actually go and solve a problem for us going forward.
Yeah. I'm. There's a little person tapped me on the shoulder here, and they're saying in the UK there's manslaughter charges that can be brought against employers where they're deemed to be reckless in terms of their in terms of the way they've dealt with a particular incident or fatality. They can be held
Yes.
accountable
It's called
through
it's called corporate manslaughter. Yeah,
corporate manslaughter. And I'm just thinking it's a very, very dodgy area. Someone commits suicide and then an employer is potentially in the UK being brought for charges of manslaughter.
and that's what I wouldn't want to happen. So it could be that the person who's taken their own life is the reason they've done that is actually for factors outside of work, but they've chosen to do it within a construction environment. So now that for me is it's not about blaming someone for this.
Yeah,
This is what we've got to come away from, but use the legislation to find out as a company, is there anything we could have done for this person? You know, is there
yeah,
anything we could have done as an organisation to help this person? Because ultimately, if that person leaves the industry, as we've been finding out, you've got to then find another replacement. You've then got to onboard this person. It could be training. There's cost implications to this. Surely you're better off helping people as you go, and then not having to worry about that. And if you've got a psychologically safe workplace, people are not going to be leaving. You're going to attract better people because they know it's a safe environment. And this is what brings me back to the program we work with customers on, is that if we can help you change your culture, transform your culture so that people feel confident in, you know, admitting when they've made a mistake, you know. So being able to challenge an idea, when something comes down the line, it's like, right, we're going to be doing it this way now. Being
yeah,
able to challenge that and say, well, I don't agree. Whether it's right or wrong is irrelevant. Just having the confidence to be able to challenge that idea, being able
yeah,
to ask questions, that environment makes it psychologically safe. So you're
yeah,
not in this pressure keg of activity that can drive you to feeling anxious, depressed, wherever it may be. So for me, that's the cultural transformation is what we've got to achieve, and to
yeah,
achieve that, it's we can't be going out and just shouting at people because they've done something wrong.
yeah.
Because the next time that happens, people are going to cover it up.
Yeah. I'm looking. I'm actually writing some notes if you don't mind as you're talking,
Yeah,
and I have mood, lack of attendance, or patterns of absenteeism from the business, isolation, anxiousness. Like I suppose what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to look at, if I'm an employer, what are the key signals? Do you have a sort of a do you have a toolkit that you can tell us about that basically gives you sort of pointers in terms of
yeah,
watch
absolutely.
watch out for the signs, if you like?
There's there's some. We've actually got something that's called a. I was going to show you a copy of it, but we've actually got something called this well-being grid, which can map out the keys. Listen, there's a whole plethora of reasons why and things you could come up with. We could spend hours just listing all these out, but
Yeah,
if there's some key noticeable differences, it's just that absenteeism, that isolation you talk about as well. Some you got the staff canteen now. Everyone's sitting around having a giggle, and all of a sudden, one person decides, no, I'm not going to sit in there today, and then they don't sit in there the following day, and they're just sort of being a bit distant. You know, we need to add the confidence rather than just all sitting there saying, "Oh, what a miserable sod that is." You know, why don't someone take the initiative and go and ask, "Is everything okay?" You know,
Mm.
and even if they say, "Yeah, I'm fine, thanks," ask again and then ask again, because that ultimately can save lives.
Yeah.
You know, this is so important. It's that human to human interaction. And if you're really worried about someone, and then one of the things we do with, I don't do the training, I'm not qualified for this. We do a suicide prevention training course as well. And one of the things they say is, if you're worried about someone where they may be in a suicidal crisis, ask them, are they having suicidal thoughts? Now, that's a tough question to ask, because I tell you now, you don't want the answer sometimes, right?
Yeah.
So, I, you don't want to ask it because you don't want them to come back and say yes,
Yeah.
right? But that saves lives. If you say to someone, "Are you having suicidal thoughts?" and they say yes, right? You're not there to fix the problem. And this could just be people within the workplace. It just could be your colleague who works alongside you. But if they had the confidence to say, "Right, okay, then tell me about it. Tell me
Yeah.
what's wrong. Right? I'm here to listen." Right? That sort of approach changes cultures, it changes lives, and it saves lives as well. And
Yeah.
it's not difficult. That's not cost anything. That isn't
No.
cost millions of pounds to put right.
No. But I think, personally speaking, and I'm not an expert in the area, but if you have a, as you say, open door policy culture within the business, that people are aware that there's mechanisms and support structures in place within the company, that they can freely go up and, have these hard conversations. They're not that hard if the optics and the awareness within the company allows for these conversations to be had. But I think the conversation, in my mind, or in my opinion, and it's only my opinion, it would be harder to have that conversation if the person felt that there wasn't a buy-in from the company with a sort of a culture program like what you discuss.
Absolutely, yeah. It's really difficult. You could have the best manager in the world. You know, he spotted something in you where you go, you're struggling, and it might just be, if you look at the situation, sometimes you're a young guy, your dad's worked on building sites, your uncle, your aunts, they're all on building sites. You go into a building site environment, and then all of a sudden you're earning 600-700 quid a week, where you've just been used to 150 quid a week. You meet a girl, you get her pregnant, all of a sudden you're buying a house or renting a house, and then suddenly the work stops,
Mm,
right? That could be a massive problem emotionally and psychologically. And it's, what does that person do, and what do the people around that person do? And this is just normal life.
yeah,
Life life kicks us in the ball sometimes, and it's how the people around us react. And I've seen it myself. I've
yeah,
seen it myself. I've witnessed it because I was part of that setup.
yeah,
And you've got the best manager in the world, but he can't help you with your mortgage. He can't help you with this. Your pension, your insurance. He hasn't got that knowledge, but
yeah,
he's got two ears, and he like, tell me about it. And
yeah,
if that manager's then got the confidence to ask and support and listen, and then also to go, come on in, let's go and find some help. Let's
yeah,
go and see if we can get you. That changes the whole environment around that situation. And
yeah,
it's I know, listen, what we do is not free, but actually that scenario is free. If you can educate and transform that culture within a business
yeah,
so that everybody stops, takes a moment, and actually deals with it face on, human to human,
yeah,
which is what we are as human beings. We're social beings. Let's have a conversation and let's see if we can get someone to help. That transforms lives, and that's really, really
yeah,
important. But that needs to be educated as well into people.
yeah. And like, as you're talking there, Darren, um, I'm actually thinking as well. We tend, and my bias, and it is my bias, would tend to feel that this particular topic is more related to the guys on the ground and the guys, doing the hard, 10-hour shift on the building site. But it can also be the executive team. And I've experienced this where there's a go-getter within the business, and this guy was on top of things. Like, anyone that knew this guy knew he was just having it. He was brilliant at what he done, but to the detriment of his mental health, and nobody seen the triggers, or nobody
Yep.
seen the nobody spotted it.
Yep.
But then when you look back at it and go, yeah, sure, like this guy was working mad hours and he was smashing it from a point of view of winning work, and everything was, go, go, go. But nobody could spot, nobody seen it coming. And
Yep.
I think we do have a bias that we think it's just the guys on the ground that needs support, but the executive team leaders definitely shouldn't be overlooked.
And this is it. This is why it's important to say, when I use the phrase psychologically safe workplace,
Yeah,
it's for everybody. And these people, he could have been having problems away from work, and for him to bury that, his idea was like, right, I'm going full on with my work,
yeah,
and his work was his distraction, which is not dealing with the problem. And this
100%.
is where getting. I so often talk about this human to human interaction, which we've, especially since down days and COVID days, we lost a lot of that.
Yeah,
And for me, it's, if someone was to sit him down and just say, listen, let's have a cup of tea. We're always at work. What are you doing this weekend? Or what did you do last weekend? Oh, you've got two
yeah,
kids. All right, little Billy plays football, or, you know,
yeah,
and if someone can interact on a human level, then people may have spotted something in him then. You know what I mean? So, and
yeah,
so this is the one thing I really try and do, is get everybody talking, and it's opening up and just getting on as people, rather than just
yeah.
being blinkered and in our own little bubble.
I was going to ask you there, if you don't mind, and I'm going to probably put you on the spot, but is there one thing that people can take from this conversation today, as employers or as construction people working in construction? Is there something that we can take away today? Say, you know what, there's a win. Bring that. You could bring that something small initiative into your business next week, and it's something just to kick this off, if you like. What would that be, Darren?
Check in on your mates always. You know, no matter how close or distant you are from a work point of view, just check in. How's it going? As I said, just ask the stuff that's not about what you do day to day. Yeah, so just go and ask them, what they done the weekend, where they live, whatever it may be. Just get a little bit of human to human interaction, and that will transform things. That will help straight away. As I said right at the beginning, you know, most suicides are preventable, but not all suicides are preventable.
Yeah,
So it's important to know that we can have the best culture in the world, with everybody getting on and everything, and someone still end up taking their own life. So for me, it's about the human to human interaction, making sure that people are talking to each other, not just about what they're doing there and then in that time.
brilliant. I'm going to throw a few curveballs at you because we're near the end of the show, if you don't
Yep,
mind.
no problem, mate. Far away.
Knowing what you know now, Darren, what would you do different in life?
In life, I would have, not opened my front door for starters. So,
You would have, or get a ring doorbell or something like that, at least.
only they were a thing back then, So,
That's brilliant.
yeah, what would I do differently now? Yeah, yeah, I would have reached out. I would have spoke about some of the issues I had to people, but as I said, that's easier said than done. So
Yeah,
for me, I think I should have slowed down. I should have taken a little bit more time for myself,
yeah,
and I mean emotional self as well. So
yeah.
yeah, definitely, I would have looked after my brain a lot better than I did.
A favorite book or movie or both?
Rightio. Favourite book, I can say is my own one. No, there's there's several at the moment. There's a guy called Simon Squibb, who you may know on social media, and he goes around asking people what's their dream.
Okay.
And he wrote a book, What's Your Dream? And I loved it. And until I wrote my own book, I didn't really read a lot. And it takes me a while to read a book. but I'm quite enjoying the process now. But his book I read twice, and I've never done that with a book before.
Okay.
So, What's Your Dream by Simon Squibb is definitely absolutely brilliant. And he's trying to encourage. He wants to change the educational system. So it's a little bit more relevant to real life as we live now. And he wants to create more entrepreneurs and make people a little bit more entrepreneurial in their whereabouts and in their workday. And yeah, I actually really, really enjoyed it because he came from a situation where he had nothing and built himself up. As a lot of these, big entrepreneurs do.
Yeah,
They
well
come
done.
from nothing. Those success stories are great. So definitely Simon Squibb, What's Your Dream?
Have it written down here beside me. Darren,
Yeah.
if people want to get in touch with you, I know the website is italkmh.com, isn't it? Would I be right in
Yes,
saying
that's
that?
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do people get in touch with you? What's the story? What can you do? Give us a bit of a background on that.
So ideally, visit the website. The contact emails are on there and things like that. Alternatively, message me via LinkedIn,
Hmm.
which is always good. My LinkedIn profile, that's Darren Barden. It's pretty much where I do all of my work on there. And certainly reach out. And what we'll do is step one is actually we'll come and speak to you and your company.
Yeah,
Let's find out where you're at and where you want to be. Once we know that, we can then create a program that fits for you and what you do in your company. So
yeah,
definitely reach out. We encourage these to be face to face wherever we can. You'll hear this from me all the time. As much as we're on camera now and it's got its place,
yeah,
you can't beat face to face interactions. And so we'll try and do that wherever possible because that's what the culture is going to require when we get things moving. So
yeah,
definitely reach out, get us in. Let's have a conversation. There's nothing to sell there. It's actually creating awareness for you to see where you're at the moment and where you want to be. It
yeah,
may not involve us. It may not be, something that they come in and say, right, okay, then we're going to get eye talking and we're going to do
yeah,
this. They may have their own plans, but unless we have a conversation with them, they won't know where they're at or where they want to be. And
yeah.
we trigger that. So reaching out to us via the website, via LinkedIn is probably the best route.
Brilliant. And for anybody listening or watching the show today, again, if there's anything that we talked about that triggered you today, please go to the relevant organizations like the Samaritans and please get some support and help. It is a tricky subject, so we try to be as sensitive as we could during the whole process. But Darren, obviously, he's on LinkedIn. You can get him to the website as well. If you need to talk to somebody, I'm sure Darren will pick up the phone and have a chat with you. No problem.
Absolutely.
Darren, thanks very much for joining us. Please keep going, keep doing what you're doing, and delighted to see the work that you are doing. And it's a credit to you to come through that trauma that you did come through. And so, from your own personal point of view, we hope that you manage your own mental health as well, so that you can continue to help other people.
Thank you. Thank you for having me and giving me the chance to actually share what we do.
Take care, pal. All the best.
Thank you.
Thank you.